Hi guys, it's Tyler here for Barbells and Black Belts and for my Black Belt Strength Patreon. Making a video for you guys from my last podcast. Um, Coming to you live via my garage at the moment. I got rained out from mowing. I was halfway through mowing my yard, and yeah, monsoon hit. So here I am making a coaching video on this one too. Just wanted to follow up on one of the big topics from my podcast with Professor Todd Williams in Muro Jiu Jitsu, uh, our anti-bullying podcast that we did, and one of the topics that I believe was kind of closest to what I haven't seen as much and where anti-bullying comes from. I think it's most times people trying to strengthen their kids in a way that they feel is going to protect them, from bullying sometimes. And I think sometimes what we see often is kids that when they bully, there's a lot of underlying things. So some of the things that I talked about on the podcast was not only worrying about the kids who are getting bullied, but kind of on the bullies too. And that's an often overlooked type thing because I know it sounds weird that it's like, you're looking out for the bullies or something like that, but it's like we're talking about kids. And I'm not talking about an adult. And I said that on the podcast too. I made kind of a joke that was like, after you're 35, like, dude, figure it out. Um, Making fun of people and trying to, point fingers, tease, laugh at people. Like I've seen it. Like, I mean, anybody go on an Instagram political post and you will see people trying to be bullies as adults, name calling, talking down to people, um, and just in an overwhelming negative approach to other people. And I think a lot of times the bullies, that's the kind of behavior that they're seeing. And I think it's this like, I'm gonna, say this thing, or I'm gonna be the one not singled out. So they're very like welcoming to the idea of somebody else getting marginalized, somebody else getting made fun of, or something like that, because, it's not them. That's one of the biggest things um, that I think it comes from is like a sense of like a gang mentality, like where people want to do the popular thing. They want to do the popular thing. They want to do the thing that doesn't stand out as much as well, because again, they don't want to be the one that's like kind of marginalized from that. In the way jujitsu, I believe, kind of handles that kind of stuff. Number one, we like jujitsu is a complete melding pot of personalities, interests, likes, of hobbies and backgrounds. A future podcast guest that I'm going to be having here soon, Dr. Larry Funky. Me and him were talking about our backgrounds and where we came up through sports, where he didn't really play a lot. And he said he ran cross country a bit, but he was doing it to kind of like, hey, work on my fitness, work on it. Sounded like work on things that he could work on, but he said that his academics were his excelling point, that he really needed to focus on and really needed to care a lot about excelling, and not so much in sports. And I was like, boy, that was different than Tyler. Like everything, like I knew I wanted to go to college to play football. I mean, as weirdly as that sounds, and it shouldn't, and I wouldn't recommend it. That was my brain. I was like, I'm going to go play football. And, I was all state in a couple of sports, and I got a scholarship in athletics, and my grades probably suffered just because we had kind of, reverse kind of mentalities. And it sounded like actually even he tried a lot more in his athletics and stuff. But you not to stray off point, we'll probably talk about that in a future podcast. But I mean, just the backgrounds that you get from people inside of jujitsu, we tend to not care. Like we tend to not care if if you're a female that has a shaved head. Who cares? Like nobody cares. That's the way you want your hair to be. Like we don't care. But you're talking about like little kids, for instance, like if a girl wanted her head shaved, it's like everyone's got a thing to say, about it. And by the time that you become an adult, and especially in good cultured jujitsu classes, you start to figure out real quick that they're like, oh, people here don't care, at all. Like it's more about how you treat people than everything else, which in my opinion, that's societal. These should be norms, and not like, hey, let's everybody pick on the person that's different because they're different because they want to be different, and like, but they're really nice and they're a good person, and they help me out with some of my homework in class, whatever. I don't know. It's like you start seeing the person for who they are and not just like some of this, dumb shit that people want to hold on to like their whole lives. Um, I mean, not to again make things like a political thing, but I mean, there's this, people still worrying about like, oh, this kid's wearing cat ears or has purple hair or something. Like, dude, like who cares? Because in jujitsu, it's like I made the joke about it about the kids with purple hair. It's like as long as it ain't one of them dies that runs or something. Like in jujitsu, people we ain't got a problem with that. Some academies that's like completely a normal thing. I mean, some of the nogi we didn't talk about as much on the podcast, but some of the nogi places like your 10th planets and some of the ones that are a little bit more, just to use the word, liberal about things. It's not everyone has to wear a white gi and the patches have to be here, here, and here, and never anywhere else. It becomes like you're wearing pizza spats, and you got unicorn colored, rainbow unicorns all over your rash guards and stuff, and like they don't care. It's like sometimes it's almost like a cool thing. Like, dude, love your rash guard, because that's what the culture is. The culture isn't, this kind of, conformity type thing. Um, and so to the point of the entire video, I think sometimes bullies, they get inside of a culture like that. And let's say they're at school and that's the culture there at school. And I can't fix that at all, but we can help individuals a little bit more, and then they go out and they, you know, can be part of the fix. I don't think you ever really will. That's a big, broad, socioeconomic issue of, like inside of schools and things like that. But you can get a kid that's now maybe bullies at school because of those things. And then he gets on the jujitsu mats and he's like, well, yeah, nobody else does that. Nobody else bullies or points fingers at a person for that. Um, and they learned real quick that if they drop that guard down and maybe they have a conversation with that, I don't know, that girl who has a shaved head or something, and they're like helping them out with a Kimura or something, and then they roll with them. And you know how it is, we slap bump. It's like in between, slap bump, it really don't care. Like, what color, your hair is and whatnot. It's like, it really doesn't matter. It's more obviously that person's going to do jujitsu to you. They're going to try to choke you, and it doesn't matter. And it's like you start to learn that really fast. So I think getting bullies into jujitsu is such an important aspect, of building. And this is where I think some of the me and my wife had already talked about some of the improvements that we can make. Like I'm talking like actual steps, not a podcast, not somebody sitting around talking, things like that. Is that if we identify things like that, like with bullying, it becomes more of a reason to send them to jujitsu. So one of our ideas was, well, my wife is in the school systems. She works for the Hancock County ESC as a school psych right now, but she's been a teacher in the classroom for 17, 18 years. She still works at 3 of the different local schools. And we're going to be going in and seeing if we can request, a meeting with some of the administrators, and just as an option, just as a resource that might be something that's passed along. And obviously, I know, hey, it could be good for business. Absolutely. Let's get some more jujitsu students. But this is something where I'm really deeply looking at it like there's a problem inside of someone's classroom. I think of like if there's a 4th, 5th grade teacher out there and they're having bullying things and they're having to put up with that all the time. So that's more work for them. It's obviously brings down morale of classrooms, things like that. But if they knew that like the guidance counselor had an option to send them to something like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, that could help that a bit. I think every teacher ever would be like, yeah, let's lower the instances of bullying, And I completely disagree if anyone's like, yeah, we're teaching bullies now how to choke people. Like, that's real simplifying it. And that's like, I talk about it. I make a reference to a cheap top flight golf ball where it's got like a single core. And I'm like, that idea is that it's a single core. I mean, you're just like, that's like baseball, just teaching them how to hit things harder with baseball bats. That's all it's doing, by golly. Like, I'm being sarcastic, and that's just my personality a bit, but it's dumb. Like, it's dumb thinking. And I think like anybody who, I mean, yeah, maybe a weekend seminar or something like that, or you put them in one time, maybe their logic would be a little bit better. But it's like, any jujitsu instructor in the world will tell you on this. Like, you get on them, you get a kid in front of you a couple dozen times, they start changing. You know, they start changing, and their attitudes start changing, and they're around that positivity of other people treating people in good cultures. I'm not saying every single gym, and I'm not saying it's perfect in mine. I mean, kids are talking on, behind coaches' backs and stuff like that, and that kind of stuff happens, and I try to absolutely nip in the bud as quickly as I possibly can. My wife, Coach Amy, man, she is on it. Like, she hears someone gets picked on a relay team that might be a little slower, and you hear a kid over here go, like, she will, bro, push-ups, that's disrespectful. Like, that is not how leaders act. I mean, we have these conversations because that right there was a form of bullying. Like, got the slow kid or whatever. I'm like, dude. I mean, I had a conversation with my one little dude, and he's my dude, so I kind of had to. I let off a little bit, velvet hammer, so to speak. But I told him, I said, what happens when you go up to the big kids class? And I'm like, you got 13, 14-year olds in there, and you're only 11. Like, do you want them to be like, we got the little kid? And he's like, no, man, I wouldn't. And I'm like, yeah, it would probably make you feel like crap. And he kind of just like, sometimes you see their little gears turning in their head, and but that's what I'm talking about. And that positivity, that if they're around it a lot more, that can really, really be a big impact on their life, because they start to realize, like, dude, man, that's how I'm treating somebody. That's how I'm, because I don't want to be treated that way. And when you're on the jiu-jitsu mats, like, you're gonna get that. You're gonna run into it. I mean, Amy always tells me too. She's like, kids are gonna mess up again, because they're kids, and sometimes they have to. This is why we have to set the example all the time. So, um, yeah, just as a quick wrap up here to the topic, guys. It's one that I'm really like. That one's one that's a big interest to me, on especially the bullying. And this is more, like, this topic itself is there definitely more on the educational side, and this is someone that wants to, consume long form content, and I really appreciate it, because not only is it something that I'm passionate about, but I think it's something that's very impactful on our kids, on our society, because these are the men we're building, and the women we're building, and we're putting out into society. This is a goal of mine that I have, especially with our kids class, is that we help improve them as people, and we give them tools to, like, manage things, manage life, because that's a lot of what this is. Like, I think jujitsu, for 99% of people, probably more. I'm not arguing the numbers, but jujitsu is something other than winning gold medals. And especially if I can get a kid for, let's say, 2 to 3 years, maybe they get out of that. I hope that I was very impactful in that 2 to 3 years. And then they carry that on to their football team with, like, the same vibe as what we would have, of like, one of their friends was like, look at this chick with the shaved head. And you're just like, eh, so, like, she won't shave her head. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, ain't your head. Like, I really do. I mean, that's one of my big things, is that, I get kids being, good, good leaders as well. And they're the ones that will do something like that, because that's our vibe at Finley Jiu-Jitsu Academy. That's what we try to do. So, thank you guys again for watching. My next podcast, if you guys watch this video all the way through, man, my next one's coming out probably in a couple of days. That's me and my friend Gabe. Gabe Sanchez from Port Clinton, Ohio, and that's Second Nature BJJ up in Port Clinton. We had a great talk. Really, really enjoyed it. It's on gi versus no gi, and this is some of the stuff that's like funny enough. As I wanted to get, I said, let's do something controversial podcast, and in BJJ, that's kind of controversial. People outside the community be like, what are you guys talking about? It looks like you're doing the same karate stuff, but to the point of the podcast, man, it's all about just the differences in our, not only our cultures, but in our training and some of the things we see online and stuff too. So two black belt professors talking about gi and no gi. So that's on our next podcast. And I appreciate it, guys. If you got any questions or anything else, always feel free to leave the link wherever you see this down, or leave a comment down below, whether you get to it from YouTube or whether you're a subscriber to my Patreon page. If you got a question, reach out. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys very much, and have a good one.